الطامة الكبرى جتنا من بيجي أيضا. بيجي الله يعلم ايش قد اشتغلنا ببيجي، الله يعلم شلون صار بيجي وشلون صارت المدينة كلها من وراء.
Plumes of toxic smoke choke the skies over Beiji, an industrial centre that was home to Iraq's largest oil refinery that is no longer functional. Months of violence and savagery have elicited colossal damages, erasing the accomplishments of a bygone era.
The history of Beiji started way back in the late 70s of the last century. This was one of the major oil and gas projects that the Ministry of Oil and the country wanted to embark upon, because there was a shortage, in fact, a major shortage of oil products. So the total was 290,000 barrels a day, which constituted about half the capacity, the total capacity of the Iraqi refining industry.
Oil production here ceased some 18 months ago after Islamic State fighters stormed into Iraq, conquering Mosul, now the capital of their imagined caliphate. Iraqi Foreign Minister Hoshir Zebari refuted initial reports that Beiji had fallen into militant hands, but 2 years later, the reality cannot be dismissed. Established in the early 1980s, the refinery itself lies midway between Mosul, IS stronghold, and Baghdad, Iraq's capital. It is made up of several refineries and power plants, accounting for 50% of the country's overall refining capacity. Storage tanks for gas and kerosene pepper the remaining space, but the outage of the complex will inevitably add to the country's deepening energy crisis.
22/11/2014 يوم السبت، هذا داخل الطاقة والمصفى.
Baiji, before ISIL, was in the firm grasp of the Military Council for Iraqi Revolutionaries, otherwise known as Al-Majlis al-Askari, and produced an estimated 270,000 barrels of oil a day, according to oil officials FRB spoke to. Following IS's lightning advance, the council had no choice other than to relinquish control, or to engage in bloody combat. The area was directly seized after they withdrew, and with its eyes on vital oil fields across both Syria and Iraq, Beiji was a prize much too valuable for IS to let slip.
Of course, what exactly happened is nobody knows. After ISIL has taken over the complex, every now and then we heard of fighting between governmental forces and the ISIL forces, and this definitely caused some damage. And every now and then there were some fires to some of the tanks, and we keep in mind also that this stoppage of operation must have come suddenly, and that is not good for any refinery, because in order to stop a refinery from operation, there is a certain sequential events that you have to follow to make sure that it will not damage.
Pundits have long argued that control over Beiji exchanged hands several times during the year-long battle, but testimonies and video footage suggest that state forces were unable to advance beyond the city's fringes. Heavy gunfire exchange between both warring sides caused extensive damages, as did US airstrikes on IS positions.
In Beiji this past week, the Beiji oil...
Last year, Pentagon's Colonel James Warren confirmed that 152 oil infrastructures had been damaged by airstrikes, along with military equipment, since IS began sweeping through the region. But the strategy has proven less effective than Iraqi forces had hoped. In spite of the army's repeated claims of a near victory, the messy reality fell short of their political desires. The violent tussle that ensued for more than a year ended, but was like nothing any party had anticipated. Unable to push back against state forces and allied militias, IS set fire to large storage tanks and delicate equipment. At the time, it was rumoured that the fires were intended to distract attention away from El Anbar province, but the decision may have been more conscious than that. ISIL revised its strategy to make it impossible for Iraqi forces to achieve their aims, denying both themselves and their opponent the prize that is Beiji. Some observers have gone as far as saying that IS's ability to flatten the refinery demonstrates inherent weaknesses in the Iraqi army. Even with the assistance of 300 coalition airstrikes, armed forces and the popular crowd failed to effectively push back. What remains intact within the sprawling complex is a question without definite answers, but the loss is overwhelmingly apparent. Immediately after IS militants retreated, the Iraqi flag was raised high and celebrations began, but the city had already sustained heavy, if not irreversible, damages. It now sits in the hands of government forces and militia outfits that form Iraq's popular crowd.
نحن الآن في داخل مصفى بيجي تم تحرير المصفى بالكامل. طبعا انتم تشوفون المصفى شلون محرر، وهذا الدمار طبعا سببه الدواعش، ونهد النصر من قيادة الشرطة الاتحادية البطلة ووزارة الداخلية.
الانتصارات العظيمة، هذه المعركة الحاسمة التي تحققت ونحن اليوم في مصفى بيجي، وهذه العمليات بالقاطع الكبير تبلغ أكثر من 800 كيلومتر مربع قاطع العمليات. بل اليوم استثمار الفوز تعمل قيادات على أن تندفع بمناطق أوسع من قاطع العمليات المخصصة.
March marks the third month since state forces moved into the area after IS retreated. What has unfolded during these months is now threatening the future recovery of Beiji. FRB caught up with oil expert Saadallah Fathi to find out what had been happening in the aftermath of the city's takeover.
We really do not know exactly what happened. All we know now is that a lot of trucks are loaded with these materials and leaving the refinery in the direction of Baghdad. Well, the reports I read and the information I received from observers indicate that all mobile equipment were taken away from the refinery, such as generators, pumps, welding machines, cars, trucks, even cranes, which are necessary for heavy lift within the refinery operations. Well, there are two theories here. Either they are afraid of the perpetrators who are conducting this operation, or that they are totally in collusion with them.
This is not the first incident of theft known to Beiji. Back in 2006, masked men illegally extracted oil under the supervision of what appears to be Iraqi police forces. The oil eventually found its way onto the black market, where it was sold for profit. The methods they employed were not subtle, as exhibited in this leaked video. After carelessly hacking into the oil pipeline, the material is loaded onto tanker trucks neatly lined up behind one another. Gallons of oil stolen and also wasted. History appears to be repeating itself. Allegations of theft have surfaced online, with many accusing forces belonging to the popular crowd of stealing devices, equipment, and other materials that once held the refinery together. Not long after victory was announced by official state television stations, inspectors arrived onto the scene to assess the damages.
Well, there was a detailed visit, sort of inspection, toward the end of October 2015. And the group that went there, wrote a report which indicated that one of the production lines is not extensively damaged and repairs could start there. And they submitted their report to the ministry. But when they went back with some other officials and officers of the army and local government officials, perhaps to make a better survey, they were not allowed to go into the refinery. And until today, people are barred from the refinery, no matter at what level they are.
Accompanying these claims is photographic evidence purporting to show looted equipment. The material itself, according to ex-oil minister Issam Chalabi, has become something of a hotly debated matter among Iraqi politicians.
After they entered, they did not want to accuse anybody because those who had made the looting is probably the militias, Al-Hashd al-Sha'bi. So why did they do so?
According to Iraqi state television Sumerian News, Governor of Salahuddin, Ra'id Jaburi, has held the central government responsible for the absence of any cleanup operations and restoration efforts in Beiji. Neither facts nor speculations can undo these damages, and the biggest victim of all remains the national economy. The government has not refuted or verified allegations of looting facing its forces. Some oil experts have argued that the recovery of Beiji is not a government priority, but the area remains vulnerable to those seeking to capitalize on the situation.
So there's been damage because of fighting, because of occupation, because of damage, because of fighting, and then because of looting. That all will delay the possible repair and reoperation of the refineries. That means further hardship for the country.
Iran is the other name cited by several news agencies, including Iraq Oil Report and Rudao. It is claimed by both that the Iranian regime is seeking to make gains on the back of Beiji's near-total destruction. It is an argument regarded by some as unsound, but former advisor to Iraq's Ministry of Oil, Saadallah Fathi, had something different to say on the matter.
And at the same time, somebody even told me that an Iranian flag was raised high over one of the columns in the refinery. And we know for sure that some equipment appeared in Suleimaniya, loaded on trucks, and that can only go in the direction of Iran through that gate. So I believe the Iranian presence in this activity is there, and this should not surprise anybody.
An unnamed senior official quoted by Iraq Oil Report also said that he had made efforts to prevent looting by raising the issue with the popular crowd, the Ministry of Oil, and the Prime Minister, but all had ignored his calls. The conspicuous lack of interest also ignores the needs of the local population that have depended almost entirely on the production of oil and gas. The fate that has befallen the district follows a similar pattern of looting and lawlessness which erupted in Tikrit after government militias seized the area. Beiji refinery that opened in the early 80s has helped to sustain 3 entire generations, never once failing to provide fuel or electricity. It has not only been plundered beyond repair, but the lifeline of the local population has been suspended until further notice.